Once again, welcome to Cricket 360, another exciting episode that we have for you. As you know, Cricket 360, we try to give you cricket on the African continent, and specifically just trying to focus on what's happening within the continent of Africa. But right now, we're talking about Zimbabwe. I am back home in Bulawayo, and for another test match that we had, the only test match versus Ireland. And as you know, I don't walk alone. Not that I'm a Liverpool fan, no. About Manchester United. And today I have two guests, Dean du Plessis, Darlington Matambanadzo. Welcome you back. Gentlemen, how are you?
Hello, fine, thank you. Fine, thank you. Again, great to be here.
Fantastic. Right, I don't know where to start. Pros, cons, the results. Let's start with the results. I'll start with you, Dean. What do you make of Zimbabwe's result versus Ireland in this only test match?
Yeah, look, I mean, we can talk all we like about the individual performances because there were some very, very good individual performances from Zimbabwe. Blessing Muzarabani's 7 for 58 was outstanding. And for those of you who don't know, it was the first Zimbabwean, or Blessing was the first Zimbabwean fast bowler to take 7 wickets in an innings. So that was very special. And then he contributed with the bat. Nick Welsh was good and so on. So there were a couple of very good individual performances. But in terms of the result, which is what you are asking about, it's another loss, and it means that Zimbabwe have now played 10 test matches. They've drawn 3 and lost 7. So, you know, obviously that's more than disappointing from that particular perspective. And you just wonder, because it's a very interesting scenario in the sense that Ireland actually don't play nearly as much cricket as what Zimbabwe do. They don't have as sound first-class infrastructure as what Zimbabwe do, but they somehow seem to be winning test matches. This is their 3rd consecutive test win. And so with the limited resources that they have, they're actually doing incredibly well, whereas Zimbabwe, who play a lot more Logan Cup cricket, which is Zimbabwe's premier first-class competition, you know, they're pretty much playing cricket all the time now, but then when they do step up and they have to play these test matches, they fall very, very short of the mark.
Yeah, talking about how Zimbabwe lost that match, yes, should say that we have lost quite a number of tests, but then are we playing regularly enough test match really to say that we're not producing wins? Because the period of time that we're looking at these 10 tests that we have, it's quite a lot compared to other test playing nations who have played more games, Darlington. Does it equate enough?
Yeah, Eli, I think what I would say to that, I understand and I hear very much where you're coming from, because Zimbabwe haven't been playing a lot of test cricket. If you consider the last test match that they won was back in 2021 against Afghanistan in the UAE, and that was predominantly due to the fact that that Zimbabwe as a country haven't played enough test cricket. But then you look at Ireland, neither are they playing enough test cricket. So they had I think about a 4-month gap between test series, and they were still able to stand up and deliver. Whereas Zimbabwe, well, they've now played, obviously they had the 2 tests against Afghanistan here at Queen's Sports Club in Bulawayo, which wasn't that long ago. It was Boxing Day and New Year's, you know, the New Year's test matches. Whereas Ireland went for 3 or 4 months without playing a test match. And initially you could actually see how rusty their top order batsmen were. But Zimbabwe let them off the hook and they were very good enough to capitalize. So I don't know if we can continuously use the reason or the excuse of saying, well, Zimbabwe don't play enough test cricket and that's why they're not performing. Because you look at Ireland, who have fewer players to draw from and who have the most appalling weather to work with. You know, you heard at the press conference, Andy Balboni was talking about having indoor net sessions in Derry and Dublin and so on. So we have the facilities as a country. Zimbabwe have the weather, you know, to do what they need to do, but they still didn't deliver. So I'm not sure we can continuously fall back on the excuse of not playing enough test cricket. I think when the opportunity comes your way, you need to do the best you can to grab it by both hands or with both hands.
Okay.
I'm going to jump in here, sorry.
Yeah.
I heard a really interesting description about how you win at cricket. We're working with a statistician called Rodney, I think Elliott's his name. And he talked about like that thing that says, oh, I'm going to win here no matter what. He called it the alpha mindset.
Right.
Yeah, like an alpha male, right? You know, like you understand the concept, I hope. is like amongst animals, the alpha male is the one that leads the pack.
Yes.
And we're talking about the great test sides that because we've both watched cricket for about 30 years. And we were talking about the great test sides, the great individual performances in cricket over the last sort of 30 years. And I think that Zimbabwe lacks that. Like, it's that mindset that just says, yeah, I'm going to go do this.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because it's the option, and Dean kind of, in a sense, referred to it, where we have excuses. And we allow those excuses to actually dominate the conversations we have around the game. We spend a lot of time saying, well, administrators or it's such and such and such and such aren't doing their jobs. There's corruption at this level, whatever it is, right? But I don't see cricketers just standing up and saying, I'm going to swear, say, fuck it, I'm going to do this. You know what I mean? Yeah. And, we talked about Glenn Maxwell's 200 in that 50 overs World Cup.
Yeah. Against Afghanistan.
Yeah, there is no way Australia should have won that game. You get what I'm saying?
I hear what you're saying, Dan.
Yeah.
And of course, listening to Dean as well, we shouldn't be making any excuses. Fair as it may be as a point, then now the issue comes down, did we have the best team selected to play in this particular test? Right. There were a few names missing, but there was enough ample time if you were going to make any adjustments to the missing three. Did we make enough the adjustments to put up the best 11 that Zimbabwe has, considering what you're saying as a very active domestic first class?
So for me, the way I'd answer it is that like Jonathan Campbell had a fantastic 2022 and 2023. And he hasn't had runs in 2024 into 2025. But he got picked on the back of 2022 and 2023. And he wasn't given a chance to play in either of the test matches. He went to Ireland in that test match that Zimbabwe lost to Ireland.
No.
And then he was here with the Zimbabwe squad for the Afghanistan series.
Right.
And he didn't get a go in those. And then he gets given a go in this test match. You're, in essence, to me, you're saying our selection process says that you should be given a go.
Okay.
So he got given a go.
Right.
Wesley Madavere has justified his selection by scoring 84. And throughout his innings, as long as he was there, I felt that Zimbabwe could have won today's match. So he's justified his innings. The way that Trevor Gwandu and then the way that Newman Nyamuri bowled particularly in the RS second innings, I think justifies their innings, their inclusion in that side. There is a problem though,
right,
because Gwandu and Nyamuri bowled particularly badly in the first innings of this test match. And I think that their performances are the ones that led Ireland back at the match.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay.
I actually think that's why I'm sorry to interrupt you, Darlington, but I think you're spot on with what you're saying, because you have a team 31 for 5 and 82 for 6. Yes, it is true that on this wonderful batting pitch here at Queen's, you would actually gladly have the opposition bowled up for 260. But when you have them 82 for 6, you don't want them to be recovering to 260 all out. And then also Zimbabwe batted very, very poorly, didn't they? And in just getting a 7-run lead. But I don't want to now take away what you're saying, Darlington, so I'll keep quiet now.
No, but like I say to you, like again, it's the alpha energy, right? Alpha mindset. You get somebody down, all right? You have your prey in your mouth and you just let it slip out.
But then would you say they let it slip out? Because another thing that our great statistician gave us is that Ireland's law order do the majority of the scoring. It's not the top order that really pulls the weight. And you're playing a team that has done that consistently. And they did that. McBride scored 90. Makade put in with 70. So it's a consistent performance that is typical of them.
No, I always believe that you let your opponents play well against you. There's no, like, a past performance is not an indicator of future potential. I'm adamant that in this match, Zimbabwe allowed McBride and Adair to actually back into the game.
Yeah, yes.
I don't believe that McBride and Adair played so wonderfully that whatever Zimbabwe would have done, they would have succeeded anyway.
But McBride is one of the top run scorers for Ireland, especially in the last year. So you really can't factor him out that he's something to consider.
Yeah, I think what I would maybe suggest to you is that McBride and Adair was smart enough to capitalize on the situation and to say, right, what we're going to do is we're going to do a bit of a counter-attack here. Because who were the two bowlers that they targeted? Newman Nyamuri and Trevor Gwandu, one thing. Yeah. So those, I mean, Nyamuri bowled 6 overs, 1 for 53 in the first innings. And sorry, that was Gwandu, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And then Nyamuri bowled 7 overs for 37. There or thereabouts. So in other words, you had a situation of over 90 runs being scored in 13 overs. Now, it's very easy, even when you 30, 40 years ago, if you had quality players at the crease, that because of the fact that they were 82 for 6, and if you had maybe, for example, let's maybe go back 35 years, if you have Dave Richardson and Brian McMillan at the crease for South Africa, they wouldn't have capitalized on the bad bowling.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now you do have the more modern players who are smart enough to do so. What Darlington says is very correct, is that Zimbabwe allowed these two guys to play well. But I do think you also need to give them a bit of credit in them capitalizing, much like Zimbabwe do. If the opposition plays badly against Zimbabwe, like Pakistan did in that first one-day international, where Zimbabwe won by 80-odd runs under Duckworth Lewis, Zimbabwe was smart enough to pick up on Pakistan's lackadaisical approach to chasing what should have been a very easy total, but they weren't really interested in chasing it down, to be perfectly honest with you.
I'm going to interject and jump in.
Right.
You do concede that Zimbabwe bowled badly.
Yes, 100% they did. Yeah, aware. So I do say that, but I'm also just giving a bit of credit to Ireland for them that they capitalized on the bad bowling, because I'm suggesting to you that, a couple of years ago, batsmen would just have worked the ball. They wouldn't have, because they were 6 wickets down, they would have been a bit timid to come after the bowling. The bad bowling, 6 wickets down with just 82 on the board, if you understand what I mean.
Oh, fantastically. Right, so Ireland capitalized by being let off the hook by Zimbabwe. Newman and Trevor, they didn't do so in the first innings, but they did come back in the second innings. But however, despite them doing the work that they should have probably done in the first innings, Zimbabwe's batting still let them down, because really pretty much it was a solitary effort, so to say, from Wesley Madera.
Here in the second innings, yes. I mean, he did get support. I think Brian Bennett played well. I'm disappointed that Takuzwalashe Kaitano again got a start. He did get what I think was a good ball, but he's such a good player, in my opinion, that he has the resources to deal with good balls.
Are we talking about the first innings now, or the second
innings?
Second innings.
Yeah. And he has the resources to deal with good balls. And I was disappointed with his dismissal. Ben Curran, 2 caught behinds in the innings in the match.
Yeah.
So he's there's a little bit of some problem outside the line of off stump that he's just got to go and think about and then probably fix before the next Test series. I hope they don't pick him for the ODI series.
No, Ben Curran is not a short format player, and I've maintained this all along. It was a mistake picking him against Afghanistan for the. Ben Curran should be, Darlington, you remember, for example, a player like Kevin Arnott. Do you remember Kevin Arnott? And I'm rolling back the years considerably now. But Kevin Arnott, eventually, they figured out that he was not a one-day player. He was a Test player. Mark Decker, eventually as well, one of your very good friends who was very kind to you as a young player. Eventually, they figured out that he was a Test player. So we need, and countries around the world, by the way, do that. India realized that Pujara is not, he probably actually can play one-day cricket, but what they've done is they've identified Pujara as a Test player. And we can go around and round and round and pick out players who. So I think Ben Curran, in my humble opinion, is not a short format player. And I hope that I'm with you. They mustn't pick him because he probably could. There could be a situation where he could hit you a high percentage of boundaries, but he's not necessarily all that good in strike rotation. And we always talk about the importance of strike rotation, don't we, in the shorter format? But I think Darlington Matambanadzo is 100% correct in that one. I think we've now figured out that he's got a big problem. That's Ben Curran outside the off stump, playing at balls that really shouldn't be playing at outside the off stump and being caught behind or even caught in the slips eventually. But it's something that he's going to have to identify, and now it'll be up to the analysts and the batting staff and everybody to try and get together with Ben and see how they can correct that. So Ben will know he's got the problem, but he may need the footage to help him get through it.
Okay. Now, let's take a look at the captaincy. Jonathan Campbell, captain on debut. Did that affect how he approached the game?
Of course it did. I think he got out in the first innings because he was trying too hard. And, my experience is that when you're relaxed but focused, you play better. Yeah, you could see it was obvious that the tension was visible when he came into the crease. I think it was the pressure of the captaincy in his first test match. But I mean, I understand the process that actually got him to captain that first test match.
Can you explain that to us?
So none of the other guys on the field in this test match for Zimbabwe have any captaincy experience in 4-day cricket or longer. He's the only one who has some captaincy experience. Plessis Zarabani's played a few test matches. Richard Galawa's played a few test matches as well. But there were none of the three guys. Neither Craig wasn't available, Sean wasn't available, and Sikandar Raza wasn't available. Those are three guys who've got captaincy experience at all levels.
So that may be, but considering that also he doesn't really have test experience to say that he can captain a side, what would you lose by giving the captaincy to Plessis Zarabani or Caetano or Wesley Madere, who's been vice captain of the under-19s?
So for me, I personally wouldn't want to have Blessing with the extra pressure of captaincy, largely because he's my premier fast bowler. I wouldn't want to burden him with extra responsibilities. He's also burdened with having to make runs at the back end of an innings consistently because the batting at the top of the order they're not getting it. They get in and they don't make runs. Okay, so he's got that burden already. You give him a third burden. He plays a lot of cricket. He bowled, I think it was 139 overs since the arrival of Pakistan here. You don't really want to burden a guy who's doing that for you and doing it well with an extra responsibility.
Sorry, Darlington. Sorry.
And then Caetano has to establish himself as a cricketer. I also don't want him because I think he's the three genuine top order batters that Zimbabwe has, in my opinion, are Takuzwanashe Caetano, Innocent Ikaia, and Prosper, Prince Mashoud. Those are the genuine top order batters we have.
So you don't think Prince Mashoud is past it?
No, I don't.
No, that's good to. No, I don't mean it in any disrespect whatsoever. It's nice to hear because I remember Prince scoring runs, and if you remember, he used to be in the middle order, number 5 for the Eagles, way back in 2009. Bowl medium paces. Now we're looking 16 years later, and you still feel that he has something to.
I think he's got another maybe 2 or 3 years of international career left in him. And so there's a concept called cigar butt investing. It's when you find that pick up that cigar butt's got maybe 3 or 4 puffs in it,
And still
and you get those 3 or 4.
Okay, I don't know what.
Okay, yeah, man,
just pull it back then to look at Zimbabwe's bowling attack. Do you think we went with the best that we have, Darlington?
The way the wicket looked on day one for me, that was a 4-seamer wicket.
No frontline spinner.
No frontline spinner. That was a 4-seamer wicket. For me, when I looked at it on day one, and Nobody could have predicted that two seamers would bowl that badly on a wicket that was designed for them. Yeah. I cannot think, besides Mike Chinoya, I can't think of another seamer that I think should have been.
He
was in the squad, so there were reasons why he was left out. Okay. Well, I don't know what those reasons are, but I'm just saying, like, outside of that squad that was already here, the only one I can actually think of as another seamer as an option is Mike Chinoya. Okay.
Dina, you have the same mindset?
Yeah. But the thing is, you still have to, as good as what that pitch was for the seamers, you still have to put the ball in the right area. So you can be presented with the best bowling pitch or the best batting pitch in the world.
Yeah.
But you as a player still have to, if it's the best batting pitch, that beautiful road that is between Gweru and Bulawayo.
Yeah.
Very straight. Even a blind man can drive a car on it, right? But you still have to drive the car correctly. So it's the same as the bowling conditions. You could be presented with the best pitch in the world that has pace and bounce and grass and everything, but you still need to be putting the ball in the right areas. And unfortunately, Gwandu and Nyamuri did not do that. But I feel sad because I think I feel sad in the sense that it would have been nice to have seen somebody like Victor Nyauchi, who's very experienced, coming into the side. And if you remember, and Darlington makes a very valid point about picking people on how they performed 2 years ago. So do you remember in 2023?
Yes, the West Indies.
Against the West Indies, Victor Nyauchi picked up 5 wickets.
Yeah.
But that was 2 years ago. But having said that, I do feel that stability that Victor would have provided. Now, Darlington had just said there's reasons why he was left out. We don't know why that is. I would have liked maybe to have seen him come into the side. I would have taken a gamble, and I still would have picked a frontline spinner. I would have left out either Gwandu to bring in Nyauchi, and I would have left out Nyamuri to bring in, and I'm not saying it on hindsight, when I don't have the benefit of looking at a pitch, obviously. I can't see what it looks like, but my mentality tells me that as the pitch progresses, the spinners will have a say. They certainly will have a say here at Queen's Sports Club. It's always been the way of it. And so I would have gone in with a frontline spinner. So I would have left out
Nyamuri.
I think I would have left out both Nyamuri and
Gwandu.
And I would have brought in Victor Nyauchi for the experience, but then I would have played a frontline spinner as well.
Okay, interesting.
Right.
What options are you thinking?
That's a very good point, because I was wondering about why Vincent Masekesa was picked, and then just like, why do you pick somebody and then he doesn't make it into the 11? I understand he's a very raw young man in terms of his bowling and that, but if you want to pick a spinner, there must be a reason why you're wanting to pick a spinner, because you're just randomly selecting people, and then you don't play them. So I don't know if I would have gone with Brandon Mavuta. I know he didn't bowl particularly well against Afghanistan, but I don't think Ireland are as adventurous against spinners as what Afghanistan were. So perhaps it would have been for me a Mavuta or the very, very raw, but potentially the talented Vincent Masekesa. But then, having said that, Darlington, you and I have spoken a lot about the A side and what they need to be doing as well. But maybe that's a conversation for another day.
Right. You still believe Masekesa would have made an impact, or Mavuta?
No.
Still maintaining a force?
I think you would. My personal opinion is Zimbabwe lost this match in that first innings, the Ireland first innings.
Okay.
And that Ireland first innings
to recover.
Yeah, that Ireland first innings wasn't going to be fixed by a leg spinner, top spinner, whatever he was. He wasn't going to fix that. It was maybe Victor Nyauchi might have fixed that because he would have gotten the ball in the right place. Has the experience is showing that. But I think it would just been 4 seamers bowling properly on even in the second innings. Once the seamers actually bowled properly, they really managed Ireland well.
Okay, so you're of the opinion that basically you really didn't need a spinner, but had the bowlers just bowled properly, then it may have been a slightly different situation So in other words, the backup bowlers after Blessing was Zarabani and Richard and Garava, if they'd come to the party then and mopped up the tail, it may have been worked out a bit better?
I'm going to say something that sounds controversial. I don't think that Andy McBride is massively better bowler than Wesley Madivede is. You know what I mean? I don't think that As I said, I don't think that he's a frontline spinner, you'd call him. I think he's much better than Wesley Madewere.
Who just kept
And
his.
Madewere did exactly the job that McBride did.
Well, then, that as it may be, there seems to be a lot of brilliant individual performance in Zimbabwe. On the Zimbabwe side, you take a look at Blessing Mzarabani's efforts with the ball, his best figures of 7, and then you take his knock with the bat, the 47 that he put up as well. Then in the second innings, Brian Bennett did chip in, and then Wesley Madewere also just looking at it, but it just doesn't gel enough for Zimbabwe to see them over the line.
So for me, right, Zimbabwe is comfortable getting 30 and 40. And it's a difficult one to deal with. We had the last time we had a conversation, I spoke about the idea that I just want these guys to make hundreds consistently, but I can't white it for them. You know what I mean?
Big,
Yeah, because we've had now, for example, Takuzwa Kaitano has had 4 starts in 3 test matches. Doesn't have a 50, doesn't have a 100.
It's comfortable in the making.
I don't know if he's comfortable, but I'm just saying, what history is going to judge him if he doesn't
convert them.
Now, because you know who's his next opponents are?
Yeah.
His next opponents are Bangladesh and Bangladesh.
Mwah.
And then after that, it's going to be England and England.
Yeah.
Then you have South Africa and then New Zealand. Okay? And relatively, Ireland are the softest of those opposition. They're not soft opposition, but they're the softest when you consider your player.
And who you're going to be playing next?
Yeah. You know what I mean? And so, and then we also saw Brian Bennett got 40, 44, 45. I can't remember if it was right? And again, he got a start, didn't convert it into runs. Wesley had a start in the first innings, 25, didn't convert those into a big score. Jonathan Campbell got a start in the second innings, didn't convert that into a big score.
Brian Bennett.
And so, that's just an interesting tendency that we see that guys get starts. They don't turn them into match-winning innings.
So, Darlington, Eli, do you think, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be taking over the podcast here, but it's just a question. Is it that perhaps the bowling at domestic level is of a lesser quality, that the players, the batsmen who get these 30s and 40s in test match cricket are able to get away with a bit more? So, for example, yesterday we looked at Jonathan Campbell. Now, Jonathan really disappointed me. I'm sorry to say that, but he didn't impress me at all. So in the sense that the way that he was playing the left-arm spin of Matthew Humphreys, now, obviously, he was trying to continuously playing through extra cover or through the covers as opposed to trying to play him straight. So, he got into quite a bit of bother. And at one time also then when he tried it, so there was a nice big gap on the leg side at mid-wicket, lots and lots of space. Now, you want to try and play the ball through mid-wicket and he gets a leading edge, and that's how his dad actually used to play as well sometimes. Lucky enough to get away with it, he got away with a couple of runs, 2 runs. But I feel that at domestic level, they are the batsmen are able to get away with some of these things, and so the 30 or 40 at test level becomes a 80 or 90 or even 100 at domestic level, if you understand what I'm saying to you. Because
I hear you, but I beg to differ on that.
Right.
Well, largely because one, some of the things that just generally that comes with playing test, there's an intensity that test cricket has that you don't find that pressure when you're playing domestic cricket. And that for me, which is why I say that if you're going to consistently perform at domestic cricket, you need to be averaging at least 80 or 70. Then you half it when you get to international cricket because of the pressure that just comes with the intensity of test cricket. But for me, the thing that really I say is lacking from our batters is application, how you just apply yourself. Just instead of looking at batting the whole entire day, just the attitude to just break that match into small fine little bits. That's what's missing for me.
So my response to that is we had a very interesting conversation with Johnny's dad, Alistair, maybe six months ago. I can't remember where we met at Junior, watching a game together. Jono was playing in the NPL, it was actually. And he said, what do you think's the problem with Zimbabwe cricket? And I said, I think Zimbabwean cricketers are pussies. Like Zimbabweans in general are pussies. And when I forgot my language, forgive my language, but I had to use the word. And what I mean by that is that like, my domestic situation, because domestic cricket is poor or bad or whatever, is just another excuse I can actually use for my failures. You know what I mean? I mean, like, there's a point where we can keep dominating. Like, we had a conversation before this podcast started, and I read you something that I wrote in another group that I'm on, where I said, yeah, it's easy to keep blaming external circumstances. All right? That's an external circumstance that, like, maybe Logan Cup isn't as strong enough as it is. But then Logan Cup is not as strong enough as it is, but then Ireland haven't played a single game of cricket in 4 months. Right? They overcame that. Why can't Zimbabweans overcome a weak Logan Cup?
All right. So as we're summing up things, just to find out from you guys what you feel Zimbabwe need to work on. I know you spoke about that alpha that is lacking in there. Apart from that, anything else that you feel like they really need to consider?
I think if you're an alpha male, your life is fixed, mate.
I don't know, you know, to me, a lot of the players just have a lot of, there's no mental aptitude, you know, and also the ability to play spin, or the lack of ability to play spin, is, we haven't seen that for a good 16 or 17 years. And people will say, well, Sean Williams plays spin well. He does, but you know what? He gets out to them as well, because he just plays the reverse sweep. A lot of the shots that our batsmen play against spin are get out of jail shots. So you're not actually playing the spin correctly in terms of your defensive technique. And I got to be a bit careful because I'm totally blind. I can't see what's happening, but I'm just simply telling you what makes sense,
right,
to me. And I think we've just had this situation of our younger players looking up to our senior players and seeing how they would have gone about their business. And you know, on one or two occasions, they would have been very successful playing reverse sweeps, and because it's either a block or a slog.
Yep.
There's no manipulation or strike rotation, even in the shorter formats of the game. You just don't see it. The last person who was able to very successfully do that was Tawanda Eli, and people will disagree with me on that, and that's fine because we're all entitled to an opinion. But it's either the big reverse sweep or the slog sweep, or you know, there's nothing in between. There is nothing in between. And that is a mental blockage that we have from our current generation of players looking up to the slightly older generation of players and seeing how they went about their business. But I'm sure I stand alone on that one.
Stand alone you may, but if there's anything there, you're a youngster out there that you would want to take a leaf out of, I'll say take a leaf out of Nick Walsh's book. He batted brilliantly. Yes, he played with power, but also he was able to just manipulate the field quite well and play his power strokes quite well. But most importantly, one I would say take a leaf from is Wesley Madera. Applied himself quite well. Looked solid when he went in defense, even when he went on the front foot. Those for me would be key because they make testament of how he played and how he was able to score those runs in the second innings. Much more resolute, very confident in his approach, clear mind process. The first one after Dion Myers that I'm seeing actually playing with a clear mindset in terms of what he wanted to do. Right, parting words, gentlemen?
I'm looking forward to the white ball cricket in Harare. And I'm also, as I said, I'm really hopeful. I think we saw flashes of what Wandu and Yamuri are capable of this test match. Unfortunately, it came late in the test match after the test match had essentially been lost.
Yeah.
And it's also nice to see that Wesley had a very difficult last 18 months. And he's gone, done the work, and come back from that stronger, focused. And again, leaders just continue to express my admiration for Gaetano, because I think that I think he's the best of one of the best top order batters that we've got in the country. And I would like to see him continue what he's doing and then progress from there.
Dude. Yeah, look, for me, I was just so very happy with Plessis Rabani becoming the first fast bowler to take 7 wickets in an innings. It's quite bizarre because we've had Paul Strang and Sikandar Raza take 7 or more, Paul Strang actually got 8 at this very ground. I was here. That was 25 years ago. 8 for 109. And then, Wesley Matambanadzo, to me, he really, I know he had a bit of a brain fade in the way that he got out. I get that. And myself and Darlington are saying that most top order, well, sort of Australian middle order batsmen, they probably would have been 100 not out. I understand all of that. But I loved the way that he went about his business. A naturally instinctive and aggressive batsman. His shot selection up until the way that he got out was outstanding. The way that he left the ball alone outside the off stump, barring the one incident when Balboni dropped him. But the thing is, well, he took on he was dropped and he was given an opportunity and he tried to do the best to make it count. I really do not, and I've seen a lot of Wesley Matambanadzo, and I'm going to use the word seen. I've seen a lot of Wesley, and to me, that was the best innings I've seen him play. That was very, very special. So I really enjoyed that, but I'm looking forward to the shorter formats, and I hope in the 50 over format that Brian Bennett will not be batting at number 7. I don't like that. If you want to play him, he's got to be in that top 4, in my opinion.
Mark, thank you so much for joining us for this one. As for me, I enjoyed every part of it. The cricket was fantastic. Stats were amazing. Everything was beautiful. Test cricket being played here at Queen's Sports Club. Do catch us on the next one as we come back with the White Ball series. As for me, catch you on the next one.